and welcome to our webinar today. This is part of a larger series dealing with a variety of topics concerning Dynamics GP to Dynamics 365 Business Central. So just encourage you to check out our website if you'd like some more information or would like to view that content. Our plan for this hour is looking at the benefits of the Microsoft Cloud, talking a little bit about cost of ownership. Then I'd like to spend most of our time looking at specific functionality in Dynamics 365 Business Central. And as Sabrina said, feel free as we go to type your questions in the question box. Love questions, would be happy to answer any questions that you might have as we go along. All right, so first thing to do is really to set the stage here, talking about Dynamics GP and Dynamics 365 Business Central. And just off the bat, just want to clarify, Dynamics GP is not going away. If Dynamics GP is a product that you're happy with and it serves your needs, we want to be your partner and continue to be your partner, continue to help you out in the product. So what we're seeing is that Microsoft is really doing a concerted effort around marketing Dynamics 365 Business Central, and we just want to give you answers to questions that you might have and help you understand what's going on. So this isn't a sort of end of the road type conversation for GP, or you have to move to Dynamics 365 Business Central. We want to help you if you're ready to move and if it makes sense for you. So just setting the stage on that. All right, first of all, really thinking about your goals, and this corresponds to really what I just said about Dynamics GP. I really encourage you to understand what goals you have when considering a move from GP to Business Central. And review your goals as a team, make sure you can articulate the goals. Some of the goals that we're hearing from people is, cost consideration and budgeting. If you're at the place that you need to invest in hardware, you're looking at maybe it's a major upgrade, maybe you've got a change in your business and you're looking for additional feature functionality, those could all be goals that are part of a move to 365. Thinking about infrastructure simplification and management, software functionality, user accessibility, big one. We're looking at a SaaS product. That could be a goal of saying, I really want my employees and the people that access this data, so it could be board members, it could be other stakeholders. We want to be able to have the system accessible to them from anywhere, so they don't have to be within the bounds of our network, for example. Other things is really looking at the full Microsoft stack of application integration. So these are just some goals that we're hearing from people, but I just really encourage you to think about what the goals are that you're after and why would you want to upgrade or move. So let's look at cost of ownership considerations. So when you look at your Dynamics GP system, you made an initial cash outlay to buy the software. You made a cash outlay to purchase hardware. You've got SQL Server licenses, you've got client access licenses, all that sort of stuff in the mix. And then you pay an annual maintenance fee on at least your Dynamics GP licenses. So when we think about and when we look at Dynamics 365 Business Central, what we're looking at is a fixed price per month. And the way that the licensing works is it's a charge per user per month to access the system. So user counts can go up and can go down, but there is no maintenance fees, nothing like that on an ongoing basis. If you look at direct dollars in terms of license fees that you'd pay with Business Central and what you currently pay with Dynamics GP for maintenance, what you're going to see is the per user license fees are increased. So it's more than what you'd be paying just for your maintenance fee. But what you really need to do is look at the total cost of ownership, which is the second bullet point here, and really looking at all of the costs of managing a system. So if you think about hardware costs and upgrade fees that you have to pay on a regular basis, and if you think about SQL Server and Windows licenses, client access licenses, all of that really needs to be considered when you do a cost comparison between a SaaS offering like Business Central and GP. So, think about the total cost of ownership. As I said, we've got adjustable user counts. So currently in your system, you add 5 users and then your business contracts for some reason. Those 5 users are yours. There isn't a decrease in the user counts. With Business Central, we have some flexibility with the ability of moving user counts up and down. As I said, there's no server hardware. So when we look at Dynamics 365 Business Central, we're looking at a SaaS product, which means software as a service. Again, I said licensing is per user per month, and what you're paying for is access to the platform of Business Central that Microsoft maintains on the back end. So what that means for you as an end user of the application is I don't have any hardware costs in terms of server. I really have minimal issues in terms of even dealing with a client. So I'm going to show you a little bit with a tablet client, a phone client, but it's a browser-based application. So if I've got older hardware on my desktop, I'm not going to have to worry as much about keeping that as current, accessing a SaaS application because I just need a browser. The other thing when we look at simplified client-side maintenance, as I'm getting here, the application, because it's running in a browser, opens you up for Mac users. So currently, when we have Mac users, they've got issues accessing oftentimes an ERP system. So using an application that's in a browser, fully functional, supported within Safari. So some of the benefits of looking at a cloud application. Simplified infrastructure and management. And this is really a key point when you think about an on-prem application and moving to a cloud-based application, is eliminating server hardware and software. So I think that server-side software can be a hidden cost for some organizations, knowing that I do need Windows licenses and I need client access licenses to access the server from my client. So looking at the total cost of ownership, all that goes away with a SaaS offering. So I don't have to have, as I said before, internal hardware or software to manage the application. Simplified client hardware and software requirements, listed of currently supported browser. You've got Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari for those Mac users. I actually use other browsers besides these listed, and I'm not having any problem running the application, although just to note, these are the listed of supported browsers. Included is a phone and tablet app. So if you think about, again, accessing the application, your business application, outside the walls of your organization, these two apps will facilitate it. They're free to download. You use your same user ID and password to access the app that you do to your desktop browser. And again, the apps are supported on Windows, Android, and iOS. Big point on infrastructure simplification is the system backup and maintenance. And really coupled with that is system upgrades and patches. So I was a CFO of a fairly large nonprofit for a couple years, and we always got dinged on our audit letter on our system backup and maintenance. So the thing that ended up in our audit letter, it was just a note, was they didn't think, our auditors didn't think that we had fully tested our whole backup, disaster recovery, and maintenance process. So they wanted us to do nightly backups to tape. They wanted us to have offsite storage for that information. They wanted us on a monthly basis to do random restores, et cetera, on our systems. Well, we didn't do that. We didn't have the time to do it. We didn't have the resources to do it. When you think about a SaaS offering, all that sort of backup and maintenance is completely eliminated. It's in the cloud. Microsoft maintains backups. Microsoft does all the maintenance for you. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing is system upgrades and patches. So when I work with clients, it's kind of it's a good question to ask yourself, which is, do you know that you have all of the patches, and are you on a current version of all the software you're running? Most of the time when I meet with clients, they can't say yes to that. They really don't know if they have all the patches that are required on their infrastructure, both from a server base, but also from the ERP application. And then where are they with an upgrade? A lot of our clients are sitting in that 12-month to 18-month position on their software, just not a great place to be. With a SaaS offering, dealing with patches and dealing with upgrades is eliminated. So again, Microsoft will update the application on a regular basis for you. Yes, it is a forced move, but what we're finding with our clients is that's a fairly easy transition. So it's upgrades in October and April each year, and those upgrades have been going fairly seamless for our clients. The only one that I know of in October, one client had an issue with this October upgrade. Otherwise, everybody else went smooth. Patches is another big deal. So Microsoft will patch the system if they find a bug, if they find an issue. Guaranteed that they're going to patch on a monthly basis, sort of a cumulative upgrade. But what I've noticed is Microsoft does issue even semi-monthly updates if there's some issues that they want to fix. So those aren't enhancements to the application; those might be bug fixes, etc. You get those automatically by moving to a SaaS product. So again, sometimes when you talk to clients, they couldn't tell you if they've ever applied patches to the system, or if they did, it's probably months ago. So one of the benefits of moving to the cloud is not having to deal with those sort of things. All right, software functionality. So let's talk a little bit about what is available in Dynamics 365 Business Central. We've got full financial applications, distribution, inventory and warehouse management. One distinctive, if you look at GP compared to Business Central, is the advanced warehouse management. So more functionality there than what you currently have in GP. We do have a full manufacturing set of modules that are available, scheduling, routings and capacity planning and all that sort of stuff, and then jobs and projects all built in as well. So in terms of project management, actual to budget tracking on jobs or projects, that's what's there. System accessibility, so software installation and maintenance, there is none. So when you sign up for Business Central, we help get a tenant set up for you with Microsoft. We will pass you a URL, and then you've got an integrated login to your domain that would give you access to the application. In terms of rolling it out to your employees or other people that would need access to the system, same thing. Provide a URL, username and password is their network username and password, and they're off and ready to go. Client hardware and software requirements, really the only thing you're dealing there is a browser requirement. So if my browser meets the minimum requirements that I have published from Microsoft, I'm good to go. And then remote access. So the system is accessible anywhere that I've got an internet connection. So if you want to sit on the beach in Aruba and you've got an internet connection on your phone and you want to make journal entries, go for it. The system is accessible to you from anywhere. All right, other benefits here is access to the Microsoft stack of applications. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as we get going, but access and direct access to Dynamics 365 customer engagement, field service, customer service, and project server. So all of these are additional Dynamics 365 applications that have got direct connections, direct integrations to Business Central. They're also all sitting on the same platform. So you're going to have access to those applications, data crossing those applications without having to do a lot of work. So that's a huge benefit of leveraging the full Microsoft stack. The other thing that you have is direct connections with the additional offerings from Microsoft. So I'm going to show you Office integrations, Excel, Word, and Outlook. Some very unique things that Microsoft is doing in connecting the Office platform with Business Central. I'm going to show you those. And then you have access to the Power Platform. So lots of sort of conversation about the Power Platform, but you have access with Dynamics 365 Business Central to the Common Data Model, Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. I'm actually going to show you a couple of these things later in the demo. Access to the Common Data Model, think data. So my data is going to be in the Common Data Model. I think of my CRM data, I think of my Business Central, my ERP data, and I could think of other data sources that I might want to integrate into the Common Data Model all in one place. And then I can access the services that are available to me. Power Automate, which is what we used to call flow. So in terms of automating processes, could be data flows, it could be alerts, all sorts of things with this Automate tool set. Power Apps allows citizen developers to develop applications. I'm going to show you one that I built. And then access to Power BI. I'll show you some Power BI reports a little bit later. And then AI. AI is a big deal here. I think AI, even if you think 3-4 years ago, artificial intelligence was something that for the most part, organizations couldn't afford. So tier 1 organizations, yeah, they could build out AI models and they could do all that sort of stuff. But your small to medium-sized organizations, you just couldn't afford to invest into AI. You can today with Microsoft, and I'll show you some integrations that are built into Business Central. All right, so we looked at cost of ownership. So let's look at, in terms of licenses again, Annual maintenance fees you have on your GP licenses. You've got server licenses, Windows license, SQL Server licenses. You need to deal with upgrades in terms of operating system in your database. In terms of keeping Dynamics GP up to date, you've got service packs and updates, and you have infrastructure issues to deal with, both on the database and the operating system. A lot of people don't get that operating system backed up on their database server. Hugely important to get that done. And then obviously database and server updates. All these things go away when you look at a Dynamics 365 Business Central solution. In terms of licensing, I just caveat here, all these prices are subject to change, so you need to contact us before you start moving forward. But at this point, we've got a team member at $8, which gives you access to read and approve transactions, run all reports, and do employee self-service. So essentially a read-only user access to Business Central. An Essentials license is going to give you access to the full financial management suite, sales and opportunity management, supply chain, including inventory and warehouse management, and project management. So that's the Essentials user. The Premium user is everything from Essentials, and then it would include service management and manufacturing. So you see most people are probably in that $70 range, but if you did need manufacturing or service, you'd have to go to the Premium. So you think about what you're paying with maintenance, with database updates, with SQL Server, with backup systems and all that, that's eliminated, and you move to a per user per month licensing structure. Super easy in terms of budgeting and knowing what your system is going to cost you on a monthly and on an annual basis. What you'd see with most ERP systems on-prem is you have all these hidden costs of a server drive that goes down, a server power supply that goes out, an upgrade to a database backup system, the tape drive goes out. Lots of things that you need to deal with that are really eliminated when you move to a cloud solution. All right, functionality in Dynamics 365 Business Central. Just showing you this picture that we've got an integrated system from project management, operations, reporting, and analytics, supply chain, sales and service management, as well as financial management, all within the one platform, Dynamics 365 Business Central. I'm going to sort of give you an overview of that a little bit later. As I said, across any device. So this is just an example of the web browser, but also the tablet and the phone applications. You'll notice that the platform is consistent in terms of how it works. So if I know how to use the browser, I transition very easily over to the tablet or to the phone application. One thing to note is if I do any personalization on my browser, it's going to be personalized on my tablet and on my phone without me needing to do anything else. The other thing is we'll talk a little bit about extensions at this point. So extensions can be built, or customizations can be built. The client can build them, so you guys could build them yourself. You could use a partner like StoneRidge to build out customizations for you as extensions, or you can download them from the marketplace, which are just publicly available extensions. All of these things could enhance your application. If you install an extension, they automatically become available in the tablet or on the phone client. So no additional programming required to make those extensions functional. So that's a huge selling point if you've got a lot of people that are using phone or tablet apps in your environment. Okay, software demonstration. This is what I'm going to try to cover based on how much time we have, or if we get any questions. So I'm going to do an overview, general ledger, we'll do the purchasing, and then the sales cycle. Okay, let's get out of there. All right, so I am in Dynamics 365 Business Central. It's a long name. If you start Googling the products, Dynamics 365 is really a family of products. So you are going to see sales and service and field service and finance and operations and all sorts of applications under this umbrella. What we're looking at specifically today is Dynamics 365 Business Central. So sometimes after demos, people will say, well, why didn't you show this? Well, it may have been in a different product. So Business Central is specifically what we're looking at. As I said, I'm in a browser. I happen to be using Chrome today, but you can use, I've got Firefox installed here. I've got Edge installed. All of those are available to me, and I can use any of them. I can also have multiple sessions open at the same time. So if I want to have multiple Chrome sessions running, I can access the applications multiple times. So if you've got maybe 3 monitors set up and I've got, some customer thing on my left monitor, my main monitor is where I'm doing invoice entry, not a problem. I can have all the different applications logged in. I just want to give you sort of an overview of how the application is laid out. So you'll notice that it is part of the Office 365 suite of products. So I'm gonna have a link here to Dynamics 365, just like I would Word, Outlook, Excel. As I said, there's nothing to install. So once licensing is activated for my user, I'm gonna automatically get a link in the waffle that's gonna make the application available to me. I'm going to see what app, what company I'm logged into. So I happen to be in Kronos USA, right up here in the upper left. Just to note, you do have the ability to set up as many companies as you want. No additional cost for that. We do have full intercompany capabilities across the companies. So not only from the point of journal entries, but if you've got company A that actually is a customer of company B, we can transmit sales orders and purchase orders between the companies. So more than just a GL link for intercompany transactions. Obviously, security is all set up by company, so you can segregate that out as well. When I log into the application, I'm going to be logged into what we call a role center. And the design concept behind a role center is that I should be able to do most of my job functions from this initial landing page. Now I'm going to talk about navigation a little bit later, but as I'm in as a business manager right now, most everything that I would need to access and be visible across my organization sits on this initial role center. I'm just going to go up here to my settings and show you that I do have the ability to change roles. So this is a set of default roles that are delivered with the application. As an end user, you can actually set up extensions that would create new roles, or we can help you do that as a partner, but you see there's ones for accounting and sales order processing, etc. What happens when I select a different role, role has nothing to do with security. Role has to do with what my role center looks like. My shortcuts and my cues are just going to be focused around my role instead of maybe a different role. So I'm in as the business manager right now, which is going to give me broad visibility to the application. So let's talk about how navigation works and a little bit about how the role center is structured. So across the top, I have a 2-click menu system. So finance to chart of accounts. So it's not a cascading menu system where things are buried. It's just directly linked here, finance, etc. Cash management takes me to the cash area. Sales takes me to the sales area. Just to note, all of these menus are customizable. So if I come up here and I say personalize, I have the ability to pull menus off of the system and put menus on that would be relevant to maybe what I want to do. So if blanket sales orders is an area of functionality that you don't do, you can pull it off the menu system to really clean up the user interface. The next section here is just a direct link. So these are called bookmarks. As an end user, I can decide what items show up here as a bookmark. So if I go to my customers list, I'm just going to show you how this works. Over here on the right, there is a little bookmark icon. If I click that, it's going to be dark and the menu is going to show up at the top then for me as a bookmark. If I unselect it, it's going to remove the bookmark for me. So just allowing me to set up some quick links. Those could be pages, those could also be reports. The action section here is a set of shortcuts that just allow me direct access to process a transaction. So instead of navigating sales order processing, I can actually just click the sales order button. It's going to start a sales order. What Microsoft has found is that everyone really wants to navigate in a slightly different way from everybody else. So instead of locking you into a navigation system, you've got basically 3 options across the top of the system to deal with navigation. You also have this quick find ability in the system. So if I wanted to look up, let's say, items, for example, I can just type in items. I can see that it's going to search things on the current page. It's going to show me pages and tasks that I go to, reports, documentation, as well as links to app source. So I have seen clients that actually use this search as the navigation system as well. So if you know what area you want to go to, I can quickly navigate to items, for example, and it's going to just open up the item page for me to view in the system. All right, hit escape and I can close the window. Microsoft continues to add keyboard shortcuts with each release, making the mouse, well, you still have to use the mouse in some cases, but more and more has become available in terms of keyboard shortcuts so that for data entry purposes, for example, I can do invoice entry, I can do journal entries without needing the mouse. So they continue to enhance that. right, this larger section here is this activity section. And the design concept behind the activity section is this is allowing me to set up queues that can monitor things that are happening within my organization. So just some examples here: sales this month, sales overdue, purchase invoice amounts, the number of transactions from sales, purchasing, etc. Couple of things to note here is like approvals, for example. So request to approve is green and I've got 0. So a queue could also have a color code to it. So it could be green, yellow, red, gray, or neutral, which is just going to give me a visual cue that something is outside the tolerances that we've set as an organization. So each of these queues can be color coded. Anybody then that has the queue on the Role Center is going to see the same sort of visual alert. Queues help me know what's going on in the system. As I said, these are live numbers, so the browser is going to automatically refresh every minute or so. If I navigate off this page and come back, I'm going to get an updated quantity. But it also allows me to navigate. So for example, the $49,000 sales invoices that are overdue, I can click on 49,000 and I'm going to get a list then of the transactions that make up the queue. Okay, so this is just showing me purchase invoices that are past due. Other queues that can be relevant, again, I showed you the request to approve. Incoming documents would be an OCR connection, the optical character recognition connection for accounts payable. So there's a document that has come into the system that I need to deal with. If I look at the project management queue, in there, I'm going to see queues related to projects. So projects that are over budget, for example, projects that are ready to bill. If I'm in the sales order processing queue, I'm going to see sales orders that are ready to ship. When I look at the warehousing Role Center, I'm going to see queues that are focused on incoming PO receipts for the day, shipments that are ready to be sent. So it's going to help me do my job and help me analyze what's happening in the system without having to run a report or look at a clipboard on the wall. Okay, so queues can be customized. They can be removed if you don't want them. Additional queues can be set up. I'm going to talk about this special queue right here, which is sales invoices predicted to be overdue. And what this queue is it's a queue that's been set up to look at transactions that have actually been created or updated from the artificial intelligence engine. So we talked about the AI integration. This is the first example that I'll talk about. And this is included with Business Central, no additional fees, no additional licensing that's required. All I do is enable this. And what this queue does, or what this process does, is it's going to analyze my sales data and then my outstanding AR transactions. And then I'm going to get a prediction on the likelihood that the customer is going to be paying late. So this is using AI, artificial intelligence, to determine this. So it's not a simple maybe linear regression analysis that I might be able to do to say, you know, they typically pay late. Yeah, it's going to be paid late. The AI engine is actually able to do much more analysis to make this determination on if it's late or not. Now, my data set's really small, so everyone's at 87%, medium confidence. I really don't have enough data to get some high tolerance levels and to show a variation in the prediction confidence. But the more data the engine has, the better it's going to be at predicting the late payment. One thing to note on this late invoices predicted to be overdue is I can actually ask the system when I'm entering a sales order, what's the likelihood that the customer is going to become that's going to be paying late. It just allows me to use AI technology to actually make decisions in my business. So, you know, maybe I ask the customer for a prepayment. Maybe I say when I've got them on the line, hey, you always pay late, you know, we have to adjust your terms from 45 days to 30 days. Maybe it's sent COD instead of with terms, allowing me to make business decisions about and using the data that I have in the system. A couple other places that the AI engine is being used. One of them is in sales item forecasting. So what the system is going to do is it's going to look at both the sales and the purchasing side of all my inventory transactions and do some predictive analysis looking at future quantity on hand of inventory items, allowing me to then look at a forecast more than just a linear model that I've maybe created in Excel. This is using AI then to help me make some item determinations. The thing about the AI here is it's able to detect things like seasonality, where, you know, if you're creating a model in Excel, getting seasonality might be a little tough. AI engine will help you with that. The other place that I like to just draw your attention to with the AI engine is in the cash flow analysis. So we have a fully function cash flow module that's part of the base financial package. But in the cash flow module, I'm able to use AI not only to look at the current transactions, but to do some predictive analysis about future transactions, both from a purchasing and a sales perspective. So some powerful integration points of AI technology built into Business Central available to you out of the box. All right, let's go down a little bit more on the Role Center. Product videos. Microsoft continues to invest in product videos. I think when the product was first released, I'd say that the video documentation was probably a C level. I honestly think they're probably getting to about an A- level now with the videos. Very good videos. They've got them broken down into bite-sized chunks. So it might be a 5 or a 10-minute video on some very specific features. It's not something that I'm going to have to sit down and plan 2 hours to watch on sales order processing, for example. So nice, some nice options there with video documentation. The Role Center does have the ability to do several charts and graphs. So if I come in here and say select chart, you can see, again, I'm as a business manager, so I've got broad charts. You can see I've got cash flow, income and expense reports, age payables, receivables, et cetera. If I'm in a different role, I'm going to have different charts that are available to me that would be applicable to my role. So this is just some examples of the charts that are available. These charts are live, so I can view and see, what the current status of all these, in this case, my payables is. Favorite accounts. We have favorite accounts, customers, vendors, jobs, and items that I can set up on my Role Center. And the idea behind this is that as an end user, I can then determine which, in this case, GL accounts would I want to monitor. So again, I work for a fairly large nonprofit. I used to get 3 times a week a cash position report. So the process was Barb, she was our accountant. She would come in the morning, she'd run some GL reports for me. She'd take account balances, she'd type them into Excel, she'd take the Excel spreadsheet, she'd print it, and then she'd put it on my desk. Terribly inefficient. What this allows us to do is to determine what GL accounts do I want to monitor on my Role Center, and these numbers are live. So in this example here, I'm always looking at my cash, my savings, petty cash, my receivables and payables balances. As transactions are posted in the system, these balances are going to be updated. I'm always going to know what these account balances are. I could also put P&L on here, so if I want to know where we're currently running for revenue, I can add those to my Role Center. Customers, vendors are always going to show me what my current balance of my customers and vendors are. Again, so I can maintain the list. If you think of a salesperson, maybe I've got 4 or 5 key accounts. I always want to know what they owe us. I can see that right there. Vendors, maybe I've got a purchasing person and they want to watch some vendor balances, same idea. Items would allow me to see what the current quantity on hand of items would be. So if I've got 5 or 6 key items that I want to watch, put them on my Role Center. If you are a project manager, the jobs functionality would allow me to look at the budget on the jobs that I'm managing, for example. So that would be other places that we would use these favorites. Favorites also allow me to do my own analysis. So in the petty cash example here, wow, $96,000, maybe we have a problem with our petty cash. It's teal, I can click on that number. And what it's going to do is it's going to show me the transactions that in this case make up the balance of the account. So I can look through here and go, oh, it looks like someone posted a whole bunch of payments to petty cash when they should have been a different account. I can quickly answer my own question. I also have the ability then in any of these things from my Role Center to drill down into additional activity. So if I come in here and say navigate, maybe I want to know something more about the specific cash receipt, $21,000. I want to know what's going on with this cash receipt. I can click navigate. And what this is going to allow me to do is to look at all of the transactions around this cash receipt. I can do this with any of these transactions on the Role Center, but I can see that, oh, well, I had one sales invoice that was paid from this cash receipt. Could have been 15 of them. They would all show up here. If I click on the one, what I'm going to see is the actual transaction. Now I could look at the line items, answer whatever questions I might have from there. I can also get to the journal entry. So I love this feature. Come in here, I can see there's 14 lines of a journal entry that have been created. Actually, not just from the payment, but I could see the original invoice being posted as well. So I can see my cost transactions, if I've got taxes, all sorts of different things going on here. I could look at just related transactions, so not from a GL perspective, but from other functionality in the system. Taxes, for example. So I can see there's 3 layers of taxes. So I must have had a state, a city, and a municipality type taxes. Well, I can see all of that. Customer ledger entries and detailed ledger entries. this is going to show me all of the application that's happening with the transaction. So I could see, you know, a payment that paid off of an invoice, but then maybe the invoice had another credit applied to it, et cetera. All the applications. And then the detailed ledger entries tells me all of my inventory costing. If I had jobs, I'd see jobs on here. If I had service, I'd see service related here. If I had manufacturing, I'd maybe see manufacturing that's listed here. The point being is that Business Central has extensive navigation capabilities with just a few clicks like I showed you here. So I went from my role center, had a question about cash. I see a cash receipt, click navigate. I can be looking at the invoice and the taxes or the journal entry. Very few clicks to get to that data in the system. So hit escape, back alt. All right, trial balance, so we can put financial information on the role center if we want to. Self-service are queues that are filtered to my user, primarily around time entry and approval, et cetera. So that's what those queues would be used for. Power BI. So this is the Power BI integration with Business Central. A couple things to note here. One is my Power BI integration is live. So you'll see that this is not just an image that's been displayed in Business Central. I actually have access to the Power BI report. So if I hit expand here, you'll notice I have additional tabs that are visible to me now because that's the way my Power BI report is set up. So if you're familiar with Power BI, you know, these are interactive reports. So it allows me to look at revenue by type, for example. Now I can see my product categories by my customer type. So I'm doing filtering. Interactive charts, just one example of it. I do have the ability to do traditional, I would say, quote unquote, traditional financial reports using Power BI. I don't think Power BI is, you know, exceptionally powerful doing this type of report. It's really designed to be a visually based reporting system. So, you know, if you wanted to show incomes and expenses visually, I think this tool is awesome for that. You know, I like this income versus budget visual here. So if I'm looking at income, I can see, you know, where are we tracking income to budget, shows that we're, you know, we're ahead of budget for January and February. And then even down here, I can look at more specific details. These are also interactive. So if I'm looking at specifically sales discounts or, you know, sales returns and allowances, I don't even have a budget for that. So you'll notice interactive charts with the data. This is where I think Power BI is really, really effective. Margin, for example, oops, not that one, year-over-year sales. So this is just an example of a report looking at, you know, period sales across all of my customers this year to last year. So green is the current, blue is last year. You know, I have filter capabilities that allow me to filter this data as I'm looking at it. I like this one because I think this is really fascinating visual that Microsoft has just recently added. Just allowing me to do layered donut charts, for example. This is drilling into expense analysis. Just an example of another way to visualize my data using Power BI. All right, so Power BI, part of the Office 365 suite of products. You get a license of Power BI with your Business Central license, and you can create data visualizations. I think there's probably 30 reports that are delivered out of the box that are just some example reports that you can modify, you can tweak, do whatever you want, or just use out of the box with Power BI and Business Central. Report inbox, I can schedule reports. So more of a traditional sense of maybe I want an AR aging, you know, in my role center every morning when I come in, fine, we could schedule it to do that. All right, that's the role center. So I want to just talk a little bit now. When we looked at the Power BI Office integration point, I want to show you a couple more integration points. And the first one is in Outlook. So I'm in the web Outlook client. This same functionality exists in the desktop client. So for demo purposes, I like to use the web client, but again, if you're a desktop version, works. So I get an order or an email from my customer. This is a scenario. So I just happen to email myself from my Gmail account and it says I'd like to purchase another green chair, right? Typical email that my customer would send. I have no idea what green chair they're talking about. And I have this Business Central Contact Insights add-in as part of Outlook. So what the system is doing now is it's taking my Gmail address, so marcus.g.haug@gmail.com, and it's trying to find me in Business Central. And if it finds me either as a customer or a vendor, I'm now going to have access to all the transactions that are happening in Business Central for this particular contact. So this works for customers and vendors right in Outlook. Again, no additional charge. You just install this into your system. What I have visibility then is the current balance of my customer, what's actually past due. I can see the charts in terms of their aging. I can look at customer statistics down here. And then all of these blue fields are drill down enabled. So if I look at the balance of the account, $5,000, I can see that, oh, there's 4 or 5 invoices that are there, and I can view the data. I do have a pop out here if I want to actually create a new window and see it, make it easier to view, for example. But the point being is I have access to live data without leaving Outlook. What I really like about this feature is if anybody is interacting with a customer in particular, they can never say, oh, I didn't know that they owed us money, because right there, as I'm emailing back and forth with the customer, I can see what's their current balance, what's past due. I can also create transactions from within here. Now, I think there's some limitations just in terms of, let's say, screen real estate, et cetera, but this could be modified to give you some bigger windows, or if you use the pop-out, I could do that. But I can create sales orders, quotes, invoices, et cetera, right within Outlook without having to navigate over to Business Central. So amazing functionality and integration between Business Central and Outlook. This works for, again, customers or vendors. Same functionality, identical. This just happens to be the customer. All right, next thing I want to talk about is approvals. So we have built-in approvals in the system. So what that allows you to do is set up approvals for transaction-based approval, or could be master file approval. So a new inventory item gets set up, and I want to go through an approval process, or maybe a purchase order gets set up and it reaches some sort of threshold and I need to approve the transaction. You can run approvals completely within Business Central without using an integration to Outlook, but the system does allow you to then send emails, and I can approve or reject the transaction right within Outlook if I wanted to. There is also an integration with Teams. So if your organization is adopting Teams and I want to put either an alert that a new item has been set up, or if I want to allow approvals to happen within Teams, I can do that as well. All right, so we looked at Power BI. We looked at Flow, which is how the approvals works. Next thing I want to do is talk a little bit about Power Apps. So Power Apps allows what Microsoft says is citizen developers to develop applications. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time digging into this, but what I do want to show you is an app that I created. So this is just a simple Business Central app. And I'm going to open this in a new tab. So once I've created the app, it becomes available in my environment. And this is just an example of a customer dashboard that I put together. This took me a couple hours to put together. But what it allows me to do, for example, is get my customer list here. As I click on a customer, these are Power BI reports that are integrated into the application. Here's an example of that current period month sales report that I showed you. So same report we looked at in Business Central, I've now made available in the Power app. What I like about this is I've got one source of the truth and I've got one report to maintain. So as I make updates to this report, for example, it's going to not only update my Power BI report that's embedded into Business Central, it's going to update the report that I might have in Power BI directly or in the Power app. So one source of the truth. But this just gives you an example of what a Power app could do, pulling my data in, integrating with Power BI, and then I don't know, for example, looking at my invoices, here's the late payment prediction that I've made visible. I can put flags on here to say look at open or just paid transactions, etc. But just an example of a Power BI app that I developed. This Power BI app then could be embedded into other applications. It could be embedded into a web page if I wanted to. My end users can run the app on their phone if they wanted to, or they can just do it in a browser like I am. But just some example of how Power Apps can be integrated to the application as well. All right, let me look at my notes here. All right, talk a little bit about the overall functionality. So now we're going to go back into Business Central, and I'm just going to open up this larger menu here and just talk through what we have in terms of feature functionality. So I've got workflows that are available. So workflows are set up as templates initially, and then I can take a template and apply it to really any transaction, so document type of transaction, sales order, purchase orders, et cetera, journal entries, or I can apply them to master files, so customers, vendors, items. Workflows can also be filtered and can be conditional. So an example of this would be, I want to put an approval workflow on the customer, and when a customer is set up, I want an approval, so that's workflow number one. Another workflow could be set up so that if, for example, the customer credit limit changes, maybe it increases. I don't care if it decreases, but if it increases, I want to go through an approval process. Be examples of what I could do with approvals in terms of in the system, but also leveraging as part of Flow. One thing to note on Flow is Microsoft has just exposed the triggers of Business Central to Flow. So I can actually build Power Automate or Flow transactions using just Flow and connecting to Business Central. So creating transactions, monitoring changes of database elements, etc. Rapid Start configuration tools allows me to get data in and out of Excel. We use this oftentimes for data migration purposes. Full purchasing system within Business Central. So we have blanket orders, we have purchase orders, purchase invoice transactions. One thing to note is that a purchase order can include items, GL accounts, that sort of thing. A purchase invoice can do the same. So if I want to do a purchase invoice for inventory, I don't have to create a purchase order to interact on inventory items. Requisition and planning worksheets, we've got the ability to do planning based on parameters that are set up on inventory items. So a requisition worksheet is just going to look at demand in the system. Demand could come from production orders, it could come from reorder points, it could come from actual sales orders that have been entered into the system, and I'm going to get some suggested purchases that can be executed. Full inventory and costing available to us. So we've got different types of items, non-stock items, service items, full costing, planning available in inventory. That's separate from warehouse management. So if you don't need the full warehouse management functionality, you don't need to implement it. You actually can run the system without locations, probably not a recommendation, but if you wanted to, you could do that. But the system can grow with you. So if you've got multiple warehouses with bin tracking and I want to do directed picks and directed putaways based on volume that I have in my bins, I can do that in the system, standard functionality in the system. General ledger, we talked about this a little bit. So I've got intercompany that's available to me. I can do full consolidations if I needed to. We have budgets, recurring, allocating transactions. Account schedules is what would replace Management Reporter. Just as a side note, Management Reporter does not work with Business Central. So account schedules could be used, or JET. Cash management, we do have full functionality around bank management, deposits. We do have a full bank reconciliation. So we can take your bank statement, bring it into Business Central, do a bank rec out of it. This is a really nice feature in the system, and I talk about it, and I think some people wonder why I do, but I've just seen so many clients that have used the cash management feature set, and doing bank recs is so easy that I encourage clients to do them at least on a weekly basis. I got one client to actually buy in and do it on a daily basis. They figure it cuts almost a full day out of their close cycle by having a cash balanced on a daily basis. All the queues on the roll centers are updated for everybody. Everyone knows that cash is completely accurate because we're doing a rec every day. So feature functionality that you can do if you wanted to. Cost accounting is available in the system, so separate from the general ledger, separate from inventory. What I like about this is it allows me to segregate, segregation of duties, but also to create transactions in the system that just affect the costing area, and I don't have to worry about, fake journal entries or fake inventory transactions that are messing everybody else up. So all just sits in the cost accounting. Full receivables and payable systems. Full electronic EFTs that we can do, positive pay files, all that sort of stuff out of payables. Fully functional integrated fixed asset system, so I can have multiple depreciation books. What I like about fixed assets is I have the ability to process depreciation as many times as I want prior to posting it to the general ledger. So particularly when people are going live and they're making sure the system gets set up, I can do preview postings to my heart's content before I actually affect the general ledger and before I actually commit the depreciation to fixed assets. So great system for that. Inventory we already talked about. Oh, resources. So we have a jobs module. We also have resources then that go with jobs. So resources could be a person or it could be a machine. I have the ability to do all of the cost tracking with this, do capacity planning, scheduling. In terms of resources, I can do timesheets, manager approval, posting to jobs. Human resources, there is a human resources area. This is very much a light human resources, so it doesn't deal with benefits and that sort of thing. It's very much going to be geared towards resources on jobs. So if you think of employee certifications, that sort of thing, that's what this human resources is geared towards, not paying people. Full sales and marketing capabilities. So we do have a marketing called relationship management available in Business Central. So this would be CRM Lite. Allows you to set up contacts. You can do marketing campaigns, segment contacts. It also allows you to do some tracking with Outlook data. So out of the box, we can connect Business Central to Outlook, and the system will capture incoming and outgoing emails for contacts that are set up in Business Central. So extracting maybe other people's interactions, making them all available in Business Central by contact. I can set up opportunities, some basic task tracking in campaigns. So I can tie a sales order to a campaign that could maybe affect pricing, et cetera. Manufacturing. So we do have full manufacturing available. Manufacturing is, you'd have to go to the premium license to get manufacturing, but I can do all of the production work order planning, scheduling, capacities, multi-level bill of materials, actually an unlimited. Actually, no, it's not unlimited. I think it's a 99 levels deep on your bill of material. I've got routings that I can set up, costing, all of the planning that's available to me. I can do full MRP and material planning, as well as capacity planning with the manufacturing modules. Service, think HVAC type company. So, I'm going to sell a piece of equipment and now I'm going to do service work on it. It could be warranty, it could be T&M type work. I can put replacement parts on the system, pull parts out of inventory, et cetera, do billing with that. So that's service. And then warehouse management, talked a little bit about that one. We can do full lot bin tracking with serial numbers in inventory, but that could connect to directed picks, directed putaways with bins and zones and wave picking and all that sort of stuff that we could set up with advanced warehouse management. Interesting little feature here called assemblies. So in GP, we do have assemblies. This is some additional functionality around assemblies that's available to you in Business Central if you're using assemblies. I still can do a multi-level bill of material. Doesn't include a routing, but I can make products to stock or to order. And if I make it to order on an assembled item, I have the ability to configure the item. So it's not a configurator in the sense of include, exclude logic, but I can configure an item at the time of order entry. So maybe a customer wants to, they're buying a computer and they want to upgrade the memory. Well, I can pull the 18 megs out and I can put 16 in, for example. Update pricing, update costs, and then that particular assembly order would have a different bill of material than the standard for assembly work. So just some little, a glimpse there of what assemblies can do. Projects, projects is, we call them jobs in Business Central, but allows me to set up, work breakdown structure for tasks, for planning lines. I can do T&M type projects if I'm going to bill resources, so machine or people, inventory, et cetera, to the job, and then I can bill it through receivables on the project. So it could be time-based billings, it could be T&M billings, that sort of thing on the project. So that's what I have in terms of overall feature functionality in the application. One last thing I want to talk about is the ability to integrate with Excel. So we looked at Power BI, Power Apps, Flow. I'm going to show you Excel next. So when I navigate to a page, I'm going to get a list view. And under this little page icon on these pages, I'm going to have two options. One is open in Excel and one's edit in Excel. So every application on the market probably has an open in Excel option. Basically just copies the data on the page that I'm in and pastes it into Excel. Interesting, useful. Edit in Excel is a little different. So when I click edit in Excel, what's going to happen is I'm going to open up a spreadsheet and I'm going to have this added Microsoft Dynamics add-in that sits inside of Excel. And what this allows me to do is a couple of things down here at the bottom. So I can create new records. So from Excel, acting as a client, I can create new records into Business Central. Refresh just allows me to refresh the data set that I'm working with. Publish actually allows me to write back to the database. A couple things to note on the publish option and the new option. Excel is acting as a client to Business Central. So in the same way that I could use a browser as a client, I can use an app as a client, I can use Excel as a client. What that means is I'm still logged in as a user, which means I'm going to follow the security access that I have already set up for, in this case, customers. So if I can't create a customer within the browser interface to Business Central, I can't create it in Excel. Same thing with updates. So if I wanted to update a customer name, but I don't have access or permissions to update the data, it's not going to allow me to update the data. The other thing is that I've got a mix of the types of data that comes into Excel. So number, name, pretty basic. Balance though. So I have the ability to pull out of Business Central into Excel the current balance of the customer account. Now, what you'll notice is over here on the right, that's not a non-editable field, because I wouldn't want somebody to take in Excel and update the customer balance and write it back to Business Central. Doesn't make sense. Balance is a calculated field. I can't do that. The other thing is all this other data is validated. So salesperson, for example, I can't update and say Marcus is now their salesperson and write it back if Marcus is not set up as a salesperson. So fully validated, fully set up with security. I also have the ability to design this. And what the design mode allows me to do is actually determine what columns do I want to show up in my Excel spreadsheet. So I'm not limited to what is displayed on my view. I can set up whichever ones I want to in my Excel spreadsheet. So that's the edit in Excel feature functionality in Business Central. Okay, we have, well, I left us 3 minutes. I think at this point, I'm just going to pause and just see if there are any questions that I can answer at this point in terms of feature functionality, the product overall. Be happy to answer other questions on the integrations with Power Platform or Outlook if you have those as well.
Hey, thanks, Marcus. We did have one question come in, and as you're answering this, anybody else, feel free to type your questions in the questions pane and we can get to those next. The first question is, in your opinion, what do you see as the main reason for moving to the cloud?
Oh, hey, that's a great question. So I think when we look and work with clients, the biggest and the biggest reason to move to the cloud is really to eliminate infrastructure and to have an always current application. So if you think about what most people do when they've got an on-premise ERP system, they're really in that 12 to 18 month in terms of upgrades and updates, because it's doing an upgrade is a project. So when you move to the cloud, you eliminate the whole upgrade process, right? Microsoft is doing it for you. I'm not paying $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 every 18 months to have an upgrade done. It's done automatically for me. The other thing is really to eliminate that infrastructure cost. So I don't have to worry about buying hardware. I don't have to worry about keeping my other systems, software systems updated, like the Windows operating system on your SQL Server, or upgrading SQL Server itself, or database, tape backup systems, for example. I talked to one client, and they had actually been 3-4 weeks without a backup that went off site, and they didn't even know what had happened. So all those types of things are eliminated when you move to a cloud offering. The other thing I think is really valuable is in terms of budgeting. I can budget for this system, and I know what it's going to cost me because I'm just paying per month per user. I don't have to worry about all these unknown hidden costs of hardware breaking. Again, when I was worked for a nonprofit, I remember the one day my IT guy comes in and says, you know what, we had a hardware failure. I would have spent $10,000 on a new server. You don't have to worry about any of that with a SaaS offering.
Thanks, Marcus. If Management Reporter is not used, what reporting system is used for financial statements? Good question, Kay.
So we have account schedules that are available within Business Central. So an account schedule is like Management Reporter in the sense that I have rows and columns, and I can basically replicate anything that's in an MR report in account schedules. The thing that's not there, and I would say if you're an extensive user of trees with security, account schedules are going to come up short for you. So then what we would introduce is a product called Jet Reports. Jet Reports sits in Excel and allows me to all of the feature functionality of Excel, leveraging then the same concept of rows, columns, and trees.
Thank you, Marcus. Paris had a question here. She says, could you tell me the main reason to scrap GP and change to D365 other than infrastructure? Could you talk about the strength of application, its functions from the point of view of accounting?
Oh, sure. First one I talk about is dimensions. So in GP, the first question, well, maybe the second question we ask when we're implementing GP is your account structure. So one of the first things that needs to be done during an install is you set up your segments. So you set up 3 segments, and they're going to be, I don't know, 2 characters, 3 characters, 2 characters, right? You're going to have company, division, and product line in it. Then we install the system and configure the system. And you're kind of locked into that segment structure. So it's not that it can't be changed, but it's a little bit of an undertaking to make the change. So if I wanted to add another 4th segment, for example, or maybe I no longer want to use segment 2, not that easy to switch around. With Business Central, what we have is dimensions. So if I come in here to a general journal account transaction, open up my GL. So with dimensions, I have the ability to set up really unlimited dimensions, and they show up as separate fields. So if you think of segment 1 as company, I could set up a dimension called company. I could set up a dimension called department, customer group, product line, region, area, all those other things that we would traditionally set up as segments, I can set them up as dimensions. Because these are separate fields, I can add dimensions, I can remove dimensions, I can not use dimensions anymore. I've got complete flexibility from the end user perspective on how these dimensions work in my system. So another thing with dimensions is right now you'd set up a valid segments that correspond to your GL accounts, right? So you run a routine to say what are the valid combinations of these segments. I don't need to do that with dimensions. And what I do is I set up rules for dimensions that tie to GL accounts. So for example, my cash account. Well, almost everybody I've ever worked with has an all 0 segment, and you use that all 0 segment for your balance sheet, right? Because I don't care about department, product line, blah, blah, blah. With Business Central, I just set up a rule that says you can't put a department dimension on my cash account because I don't want one. So I can say that a dimension is required, optional, or excluded based on what type of account or what account I'm working with. So travel and entertainment expense, I want to capture a department. So I'd set up a rule that says you have to put a department if you're using a entertainment account, and then the transaction can't be posted without a department on it, for example. So dimensions, lots of flexibility for data entry, for configuration, as well as reporting. Because these are in different fields, I don't have to sort of do gymnastics when I go to, let's say, Power BI and break apart a segment, doing mid-string functions and, setting up all these sort of extra things that I have to do. They're already separated, and they're also alphanumeric. I would never recommend anybody setting up a segment structure with alpha characters in it, but when you look at dimensions, I absolutely would recommend setting them up with alpha characters. So admin actually is admin, it's not 100. Production is actually production, it's not 210, for example. So the way that GL is structured is a big deal. The other thing is that I can do things other than GL transactions in the general ledger. So a big difference between Business Central and GP is the way that Business Central manages documents. So, traditional system, let's take a purchase order, for example. I'm going to put a purchase order into the system, and then I have to receive against it, and then I match against it to create a transaction against my vendor. Now the vendor sends me a credit. Maybe I just want to do a small balance write-off from the vendor. I have to put a credit memo into the system. I have to post it, match it up. Business Central, I don't need to do that. I can actually create transactions from a general ledger perspective that would affect customers, vendors, bank accounts, fixed assets I see as intercompany transactions or employees right from the general ledger. The reason this works is that Business Central keeps a GL-like subledger for each functional area. And what you're seeing is sales, receivables, et cetera. There's also one for items, but general ledger transactions against items doesn't make sense. But this just allows me to quickly enter transactions. It keeps my subledger in balance. It keeps my GL in balance. I've got one screen to train people on, so I don't have to say, oh, here's the process that you go through for a small balance write-off on a vendor. No, I can do it all right from a general journal, creating transactions. What the system also does then, if I'm transacting against a customer, vendor, or bank account, when I go into that subledger, it looks as if I created a document, but I didn't have to. I just created a one-line entry. So some really creative things around the way that financial transactions get entered into the system. The other thing is I can actually have an offsetting balance account in general ledger. So I could create what looks like a one-sided entry that auto balances in the system. So when we go into environments where maybe you've got people that aren't just sophisticated accountants and you want to sort of really streamline how journal entries are created, you can show people how to do other types of entries, which may be easier for training. As a side note, you cannot put into the system an unbalanced transaction. So sometimes people look at this and go, oh, I could just get a debit and my general ledger's out of balance. Doesn't happen that way. The system auto balances the transactions. But there's some real creative, I would say, features around the general ledger that are really interesting for some people. So those are a couple of issues. I think Bank Rec works awesome in Business Central as well. Cash flow
Hey,
is another
thanks.
one. Cash flow is
Thanks,
super easy to set
Marcus.
up. Sorry.
There's just so much to share in such little time, and I know that we're over a little bit here, but there's one more question that I want
Okay.
to get answered before we wrap up today. In Dynamics 365, where would a product such as Tibco Scribe live, and how easy is it to build those different integrations to the system?
I'm not familiar with that product.
It's a ISV like add-on product.
Okay, so in terms of add-ons to the system, I'm going to just go here to extensions, and I've got several extensions actually loaded into my system right now, including a GP data migration extension that Microsoft has built. But I've got Jet extensions. This Marcus demo is actually an extension I created in my system, so this is how it would show up. Netronics is another one. If I go here to manage and then go to the extension marketplace, though, this is where I can look at all of the publicly available extensions. Oh, look at that, just updated to 488 of them. 488 extensions that are available for me to download into the system. These are everything from, the Green Shades payroll integration. There's a Sickage payroll, or I'm sorry, commissions management that's available. Avalara has a sales tax connector that's available. So what I would encourage people to do is to look at the extent, well, first evaluate the features to see if they're in Business Central or not. That'd be step one. Step two then would be to go to the marketplace and see, has the ISV published an extension that's applicable or connected with Business Central? A lot of them have. And then from there, we'd have to evaluate if it's something custom or not.
Great, thank you.
You
We'll
actually
go
can
ahead.
go out to AppSource right now. I should make that note. Anybody could go out to AppSource right now and search too. So